Good afternoon. Great to be back in London, where I don't need a jacket, and back with ARC. I want to begin with one of the century's great moral voices, C.S. Lewis, who wrote, "Courage is not simply one of the virtues, but the form of every virtue at the testing point." And that, of course, is what this is demanded right now, what I want to talk about today as a link from the previous session. ARC was built on the conviction that institutions and values of Western civilization are worth defending and worth reforming when they fail. And we are here because they have failed. We're here because we believe that failure need not be permanent. For decades, thoughtful people on both sides of the Atlantic sensed that institutions were decaying, journalism editorializing rather than reporting, government spending without any accountability, universities abandoning the free exchange of ideas in favor of conformity and advocacy. We all saw it, but the scale of that decay was not really fully visible until 2020. Yes, it was the pandemic that was the stress test that exposed what was always there. Across the Western world, institutions that existed to protect freedom instead suspended it, and did so not only from the top down, but with the willing compliance, often the enthusiastic compliance, of free people themselves. And that is the harder truth. Intelligent people in every capital decided that the moment of greatest crisis was precisely the wrong time to think, and especially the wrong time to speak. I raise this not to relitigate grievances. I raise it because the silence that followed the pandemic malfeasance, silence that is still here today, is itself the real danger. Alexis de Tocqueville, that brilliant Frenchman who understood Anglo-American liberty perhaps better than anyone else, warned nearly 2 centuries ago that the gravest threat to free societies is not the tyrant, but the self-imposed suppression of unpopular truth. He wrote, "In America, the majority raises very formidable barriers to the liberty of opinion. Those who blame him criticize loudly. Those who think as he does keep quiet and move away without courage." He was writing about America centuries ago, but he could have been writing about New York or London in 2020, or Brussels or Sydney. And the page has been turned in most capitals and most institutions with no reckoning, no accountability, no apology. That silence is a choice. Without demanding accountability, there is no deterrent against repetition. Those institutions that failed are still largely populated by the same people, offering the same commitments to free expression that they violated without hesitation when the moment of testing arrived. 5 years on, we should also realize this: official documents will not guarantee freedom. Official statements will not reform institutions. Constitutional freedoms were violated. In America, more than 100 of our universities had already formally adopted what are called the Chicago Statement, the gold standard for free expression on campus. But frankly, that electronic statement is worth the paper it's printed on. That's a joke. In each case, the document guaranteeing liberty existed, but the will to honor it did not. Tocqueville named the danger a century and a half ago. Free societies decay not through conquest, but through the withdrawal of citizens from public life. When people stop participating, stop questioning, stop pushing back, government fills the vacuum, and self-government becomes a memory. The danger is not only from the past, though. Today, universities and governments are actively building AI tools to detect and suppress what they define as misinformation. Dozens of major universities in my country, backed by $200 million a year in taxpayer and private funding, are funding this effort. They have appointed themselves arbiter of truth. That is not a safeguard for free societies, it is a threat to them. Edmund Burke, who seems to be the appropriate guide given that we're here, understood that ordered liberty requires constant active renewal by individuals of character. He was right. Institutions are not self-correcting. They are corrected by people who insist on that correction. Here is what real reform must look like. First, we must have accountability. What went wrong with consequences, not bureaucratic language of lessons learned, but accountability. I fear that's lacking. Second, structural changes that remove the conflicts of interest that permitted the people in charge to use their groupthink to calcify into policy. And third, the active, visible protection of dissent, not as a courtesy, not as something in writing, really, but as the core obligation of every institution that claims to serve a free society. But the most essential ingredient of any institutional reform is the most personal, and that is individual courage. Institutions do not have courage. People do. The reform of every institution in history has begun with individuals who refuse to be quiet. The good news is I've seen that courage. I speak at universities and policy institutes across the United States, Europe, and Latin America. And what I encounter among the young people I meet, students, young professionals, rising leaders, gives me genuine hope. These are young people for whom, yes, their social acceptance, peer approval, and belonging matter enormously to them. But among them, bold leaders are emerging who are clear-eyed about what the failures of the last years have been, and they are determined not to repeat them. That takes a special kind of courage. Consider the evidence of what's happening in universities. University presidents and deans write in favor of restricting speech today over protecting it at a ratio of 2.5 to 1. The top 50 universities in the United States average a failing grade on free speech rankings. And yet, in those same universities, articles by students writing on this issue, opposing censorship, now outnumber those defending it by more than 2 to 1. The institutions are failing, but the students really are not, and they are not alone. Many of you, of course, in this room are part of that rebuilding. The Global Liberty Institute, a program I work with that accelerates the careers of young professionals who are committed to freedom in business, journalism, government, law, finance, and the arts. We've grown to hundreds in just 2 years, and we're very selective. We ask applicants one specific question beyond their usual resume and list of references. What have you done to show personal courage? And the answers are extraordinary. So the opportunity extends, and it exists even larger than what we think. The next generation in business, but yes, cultural voices, in entertainment, in sports, in the arts. This is where young people live. This is the world we live in, the culturally influencing world. They're not yet fully engaged in this conversation. We need to reach them. They reach social media, and these industries reach audiences that no policy paper will, no symposium will. That coalition is within reach. Churchill said it from this city in the darkest hour of the last century, and it remains true today. We are still masters of our fate. And the signals of renewal, yes, we do see them. The old consensus that permitted the suppression of dissent is fracturing. Information is flowing around those gatekeepers, no matter what they want. And the solution to misinformation, it's always been more information, not someone being the official arbiter of acceptable thought. New institutes and programs dedicated to freedom have exploded onto America's campuses, close to 40 in the last 4 years alone, after literally decades of zero. But none of that happens automatically. It requires each of us to refuse to keep quiet, to refuse to move away, to speak, even when it costs something. 250 years ago, from the other side of the Atlantic, America's Declaration of Independence established a principle that goes beyond government. Whenever institutions become destructive of liberty, it is the right, but it is the duty of free people to change them. That was true in 1776, it is true today. And as we all in this room understand, it really all comes down to this. The question is not only what you believe, the question is what you will actually do. Thank you very much.